If you've seen the Back to the Future movies, and frankly, even if you haven't, you'll know that one of the most enduring characters from the movies wasn't a person at all, but rather a DeLorean. And not just any DeLorean, this DeLorean. Okay, so this car isn't the exact car from the Back to the Future movies, but it's a perfect replica, a near exact clone of the car that could travel through time once it hit 88 miles an hour. I've traveled all the way to Florida to check out this car, and I've borrowed it from a viewer named Elliot, and now I'm gonna show it to you. Now, I'm going to start with an interview with Elliot because, well, how do you not interview a guy who has a Back to the Future DeLorean time machine replica? Okay, first question, how long have you had it?
For about 3 years.
3 years. And did you buy it like this? Was it already like this?
No, it was just a stock DeLorean.
It was a regular DeLorean. So you turned it into all this.
I did.
What kind of process was this?
It took about a year of, working here and there, not straight, just, like weekends.
How do you know exactly what the movie car looked like?
So there's lots of screen grabs, there's lots of, looking at photos. A team restored the original movie car. It's on display now at the Peterson Automobile Museum.
How much stuff is functional?
So all of the things that are supposed to make noise, everything that's supposed to turn on, turns on. Even with the movie car, most of the stuff you see on the outside of the car is just for looks.
How tired have you gotten of people coming up to you and asking questions? How many people, how often, is it the Flux Capacitor?
Yeah, so you got to give yourself a little extra time when you go places.
Because you're going to get mobbed everywhere.
Yeah. The worst is on the freeway when you see people with no hands on their wheel, with their camera, trying to take a photo.
Do you ever encounter people who don't know what it is? Who are like, what is that?
I've used some older people, but most people know what it is, and they shout out, hey Doc, or where's the Flux Capacitor? The big question is that the car from the movie? There are people that don't even know that the DeLorean was an actual car.
Right.
I didn't know either. I was like, what is this?
Oh,
How do
interesting.
I buy this?
I never even considered that.
There are people that just think it's this car. So.
Right. That was made specifically for the movie.
Exactly.
How many of these replicas are there?
There's no exact number, probably somewhere between 50 to 75, I would think.
How close is this one?
This is, I would say, probably 95% accurate.
So, and you're always thinking, like, well, this little thing that I still need, right? Like, that's always a question.
Well, there's like the dumb things, like, these clamps you would normally buy and they'd be black, but in the movie they're purple, so...
So it's little tiny stuff like that, right?
All of the movie cars were different. None of them were exactly the same, so there's always arguments on what's accurate and what isn't.
Interesting.
Accurate.
Can you, when you watch the movie, can you tell, like, that's that car, that's the other car?
Yeah, there are little hints that that give it away. And this is the 1985 version of the car, the version that you see that comes out of the back of Doc's truck at the beginning of the first movie.
What does the DeLorean community think of this?
DeLorean owners either hate it or love it. There are guys that think I've ruined this totally perfect DeLorean by removing the rear windows and drilling into the stainless steel.
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you do that. Another DeLorean has been ruined.
Right.
And then there are people that are like, wow, this is this is cool. This is the car that I know. So.
Right. Okay, now it's time to show you around the DeLorean time machine, and boy, is there a lot to show. Of course, for more of my thoughts on the time machine and for more of my thoughts on what it's like to drive it, click the link below to check out my column on autotrader.com/oversteer.
The first thing you notice when you look on the outside of Elliot's DeLorean is the incredible attention to detail. Every wire, every clamp, every single item is exactly where it's supposed to be. It's truly breathtaking, and it doesn't stop there.
Now, one of the most interesting things about the movie car is that it didn't actually make any of the noises that you see in the movie. That was all added later in post-production. But this car... This car makes the noises.
And the inside is truly unbelievable. Once again, every single item is placed exactly where it should be, right down to the single smallest details you could possibly imagine. Even the buttons above the driver's seat are in Doc Brown's handwriting. I've been in a lot of cars made by a lot of companies that charge a lot of money, and I don't know that I've ever seen one so perfectly executed as this one, a guy made in his garage in Florida. Of course, there are a few highlights.
Okay, now no DeLorean time machine would be complete unless you could set the date to which you wanted to travel backwards or forward in time. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna set it to my birthday. This is so cool. Now ask any DeLorean owner what the #1 question they get when they're driving around is, and they'll tell you it's, does this thing have a flux capacitor? In this one, the answer is yes. And it works. In fact, everything that worked in the Back to the Future movie works in this car. You just flip this lever, and here it is.
Back to the outside, and especially the rear, which is probably the most interesting part of this car. There are a few highlights there also.
Now in back, of course, we have the plutonium chamber and all of its crazy wires and hoses and other details that really distinguish this thing from a regular DeLorean. Now, the top of the chamber itself is a hubcap from a Dodge Polara. That's not because the owner of this car couldn't find the real part and just cheaped out. In the movie, the actual top of the plutonium chamber is a hubcap from a Dodge Polara. And of course, if I want to put plutonium in the chamber, I can do that. Here is some plutonium and the chamber. Now we can travel in time.
Oh, and one more hilarious DeLorean Easter egg. The original DeLorean speedometer only went up to 85 miles an hour, but the movie car had to go 88. This was solved in the movie with a little sticker that brings the speedometer up to 95 miles an hour. And of course, this car has the same sticker.
And yes, there is even a hoverboard. Okay, so you've heard from the owner of this car and you've seen all of its crazy quirks and weird features, and now I'm going to do one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. I'm going to drive the Back to the Future DeLorean on the road. Yes, I know it's not the same one, but nobody else knows that. Okay, this is incredible. Oh, that's the clutch. Oh man. We'll be driving this thing for about 6 minutes until my legs give out. Oh, the clutch. Oh, why? Why did John DeLorean do this to us? I can't believe how hard it is to operate the transmission lever now with all this stuff in the middle. So they dealt with this in the movie car. They were like sticking their hand around. And then at my thumb, there's a phone keypad for the date I want to travel to.
Feel the power.
Yeah, it's not exactly the quickest car. They did make an automatic DeLorean, but it was a bit of a dog. More of a dog than this one was, which is hard to imagine. It's crazy how tight this cabin becomes with all this stuff in it. Without the stuff in it, it's actually fairly reasonable. The owner tells me John DeLorean was a tall guy himself. I'm 6'3", and so the car obviously was intended to fit someone of his height, and you can fit. The problem becomes when you start adding in all the Back to the Future stuff, then it becomes a little bit tighter. But there's even like a cutout in the top of the door so that your head fits. I have like an extra 2 inches of headroom, which is crazy. That's never the case in cars like this. There's nowhere you can possibly look in this car and not be reminded of what you're driving. It drives like an 80s exotic car. The clutch is beyond heavy, which is how they all were. The Countach clutch, the Testarossa clutch. The funny thing is, of course, we know it's nowhere near as fast as any of those vehicles.
You leaned on the door as we were taking the cord.
Can I drop the hammer?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see what happens. Oh, okay, this is third. That's probably the right gear. We're not really moving all that fast. I mean, it's not really slow, but it's not really fast under any circumstances. The novelty of this car is so much more about how it looks and everything like that. Its historical significance. You're definitely not driving it because you wanted something that is like an ultimate performer. It certainly is not that. We passed like 8 people and 7 of them have stared at us. If you notice the car, okay, this person's stopped in our blind spot here, which is probably a common occurrence.
Yeah.
If you notice the car, you're gonna, like, the only people who aren't looking at you are people who probably haven't noticed it yet. If you notice it, you're gonna be looking.
The craziest thing about the DeLorean time machine wasn't all of the work Elliot put into it, and it certainly wasn't the driving experience. Instead, it was the attention. I've driven a lot of crazy cars in a lot of different places, and I've never seen anything that even comes close to the attention that this thing drew. At some point, we parked it and went into a restaurant for lunch, and every single person who came into the parking lot for any reason stopped, stared, pointed, and took pictures with it. On the road, I've never seen so many camera phones come out. The thing about the DeLorean time machine is everyone knows what it is and everyone loves it, even if they aren't even slightly interested in cars.
Yeah, No, but this guy here, he built it himself. Because car people always want to talk about how many people notice their car.
Yeah.
But unless you got like this is a car people actually
No,
know.
you could pull up to a valet stand and there'll be a Lamborghini and they'll move it out of the way. And I didn't spend $250,000.
So here's what I've learned today. The DeLorean isn't exactly one of the fastest cars on the road or one of the most exciting, but when your DeLorean looks like the Back to the Future car, it can still be one of the most ridiculous automotive experiences you'll ever have. Damn it, no! That's the wrong movie!